Since about 1998, that's in a previous company that has merged into where we are now. We started off primarily marketing of botanicals, plant materials from Africa, Southern Africa mainly, to the rest of the world. And we developed the dynamic of the business to include pressed oils for the cosmetic trade. That was around about 2012, 13. We started off on that. And all along the way, we've constantly having our hands on the essential oil as a theoretical possibility of marketing. And every now and then we try to do it. And the main fear normally is sustainability, repeatability. The quality is a relatively easy one to tackle, but that is a fact. So essential oil in our books is still a relatively small part of our total turnover, but it definitely is there. We keep it there. My staff have constantly said, shouldn't we take it out? I say, no, we're not going to take it out. The fact that we cannot offer it efficiently is not a reason to not offer it. We must find solutions. That's why I do appreciate what UNIDO is doing. There is enormous potential. In terms of all botanical content, South Africa probably supplies 100 times less than we should be supplying to the market, the international market. Still battle to offer more than 0.1% of the world potential, while we have 10% of the plant species in the world. So just based on the number of plant species, one would assume that we should be getting closer to 10%. We are 100 times below that. So there is potential growing from close to zero. The biggest dilemma we have is the danger that the supply lines will be interrupted some way or another. It's a question we get regularly in all our encounters with R&D departments, R&D companies, is how do I know that in 2 years' time, in 5 years' time, I will still be able to get that access to that content. So we have a problem, but there is potential. Have the approach to business that says, if my client does not have a need, I can declare it as a need as much as I want to. It's not going to make any difference. The client must want it. And my experience in reality is, regardless of what I declare as quality, my buyers tell me what they want. So in my game, and again, I'm saying it from the perspective of pressed oils more than essential oils, but even on essential oils, the few rounds that we've had with them, the client would come to us and say, this is my specification, can you comply? And we sometimes succeed in doing it, but mostly we battle to actually meet on every item on the specification. So at this stage, I'm still saying that the client defines the standard. If the market is developed and matured efficiently, I would hope we get to the point where we can dictate and say, South African oils A, B, and C are of world standard. If we define the standard, the world follows our standard, but we are unfortunately not there. Seeing that they define what they want, they would give me a specification and say that is what we must comply to. And I must then find people. We're now working on Artemisia, for instance. We've been working on Tajet in the days of the Buchu earlier in the year. They would give us the specification for the requirements. And we have to go back to our producers and our sources and get them to adhere to that. Or if they can't, then I just can't make the offer. So there's, in my mind, no other standard than what the specification says. If you want to send any essential oil overseas, you have to adhere to hazmat rulings. And the simplest reason is that all international shipments have to comply to hazmat if you're working with a hazardous product, and essential oils are hazardous. So that's the easy one. You contract a hazmat company and they do the packaging and the securing, the safeguarding of your product before you can deliver to the carrier. In terms of labeling, we do not have any instruction in that regard. We normally force the client to say, what do they want on the label? What do they require for customs? What do they require for their own needs? But the basic information would be there. Species name, the batch number, the date of manufacture, stuff like that we would put on. But most instances, it's a question of how the client wants it to be formulated and described, and whether we can comply to that so that we can fit into their system, into their customs demand. So there are certain things, but to big extent, it's either dictated with do the hazmat arrangements, that is a fact, or from the client side, when they decide, they instruct what they want us to do. Phytosanitary is a strange one. In South Africa, I believe, has got the intelligent approach to it, is that the phytosanitary declares a phytosanitary statement. It doesn't say anything else than that. Although the rest of the world somehow thinks the phytosanitary certificate says a lot of things that it doesn't say. So our Department of Agriculture that issues the phytosanitary certificates very simply says, unless they get an instruction from the receiving country's regulatory body on a letterhead in English stating what they want to have checked with a phytosanitary inspection. They do their standard inspection, and all they're checking for are phytosanitary issues. Are there bugs? Are there anything that is unwanted on the consignment? If there's nothing, like an essential oil, there's nothing in the essential oil that should be defined by a phytosanitary certificate. And quite honestly, I don't know why you would issue a phytosanitary certificate for essential oil. But it's a balancing trick of what the receiving country and their customs require, and on the other hand, what the company, the buying company wants, and how that ties in with our department that issues this phytosanitary certificate. No one pays more for something that adheres to a standard. That's the minimum requirement. You adhere to the standard or you don't sell. Discounting won't even allow something to sell. So if the client has a specification saying they want A, B, C, and D, then we must comply to A, B, C, and D. Very simple, very easy. We take the samples to labs, of which there are a number in South Africa. Having your oil tested is relatively simple and straightforward. You tell the lab what you want tested in compliance to your demand, and they test it. If you comply to the demand, the specification, then you're fine. If you don't comply, you can't sell. Bringing us to the point that the testing is actually the end process of a process of training people to be efficient and well-trained, experienced essential oil distillers. I grew up in an environment with pressed oil, with Rosie in Lesotho, where even when you're working on a continuous batch, or with essential oils where you're working on batches, you must analyze each batch. You must get a pattern of your quality. You must have a consequential number of analysis indicating how your quality is retained and where it deviates, and try to find out why it deviates and find solutions for that. Now, some of the problems are intrinsically in the in the material that you are distilling. On the other hand, it's many times in the process, meaning that your process has got some deficiency or some problem that must be addressed. On the positive side, the big players in South Africa are known overseas as of the best essential oil manufacturers in the world. Same with our oil industry. You cannot build up your credibility as an oil manufacturer if you don't have a track record of the quality. But that also means you need money. The first question I would ask them, what is your experience in making oil? If you don't have experience, don't do it. Go and work as an apprentice, go and work with someone where you can learn the skills. Making an oil is a skill. It's not just something where you push it in a drum and you get an output, put it in a container and have it analyzed and it sells. Making a quality oil takes time. In 2012-13, I was helping a Namibian guy to do it on marula oil. It took us ages, I think about 3 years before we got to the point of actually producing an oil that was at the standard and of the quality that Europe, for instance, would be willing to buy. Concluding remark, I'm an eternal optimist. I am tied into this industry. I believe that we have enormous potential. We need to find a way in which we have a wider association between all role players, from the whole supply line, from production, from everything else related to that, right through to the people that have the closest interaction with international markets, and come up with solutions that can make a bigger marketplace. And I'm keen and willing to participate in any initiative to do that. Thank you.